Nikki, how are you? What's going on?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good.
We're doing well. We're doing well. Did you see the Lamar Jackson is down to 205 thing?
Yeah, I mean, isn't this the size that people are giving Jaden Daniels flack for
I
being?
said the same thing,
That's
Nikki.
I had the
I'm
exact same thought.
confused here.
Right. And Lamar runs a lot, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it does. I mean, who am I? He's Lamar Jackson. He knows better than
Right.
I certainly would, but it does seem awfully slight as a quarterback when you're taking those kind of hits. But
Got to
yeah,
catch him.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, it's true.
So a little bit of news today. I think we all kind of were expecting this. That the Commanders are going to have one joint practice with the Dolphins prior to that preseason game. You have any more info on that?
No, I mean, other than it'll just be one practice. It won't be like that full, week
3
or
day or
three
whatever, right.
practices like most teams usually do ahead of that game. I mean, it's possible that they have a second one too, and if they do, it would probably be the Jets
Right.
at MetLife. But I don't think that's close to certain at this point. So, but it'll be good. I mean, I thought last year when they had the Ravens joint practice, it exposed a lot, but I think that's good for the team to know going in, because in years past you would find out during the season so many holes on the roster, so many
Right.
weaknesses, and you hope once you find out in these joint practices that you fix them. But I thought those Ravens practices were pretty eye-opening, and honestly, a notable turning point in training camp, really, because you got to see what guys really looked at like going against other opponents. So, yeah, I think it'll be good. It'll be a good experience for them.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, with the construction going on in Ashburn, I just don't think they're equipped to host a joint
Yeah,
practice yet.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
But I think this new group is obviously trying to make a lot happen in a short period of time, and eventually they
yeah,
will be able to host that kind of stuff. Um,
yeah.
the thing I wanted to run through, and I think it's fairly significant. Um, we all knew Adam Peters was going to turn over the front office, and it's the timeline is just a little bit different because with the front office you do it after the draft, not after the season. It's all kind of happening right now. Can you just
Yep.
get us up to speed with who's in, who's out, where things are going?
Yeah, so I think the biggest hire obviously is Brandon Sosna, who was with the Detroit Lions, and he's really the number 2 now in the front office. Reports to Adam Peters. That's a big time role too, because he's gonna kind of be dipping his hand in multiple departments, and have a say in their overall strategy for this new front office, their overall vision, how they're going to build the roster. Obviously, salary cap and negotiations. He was the lead negotiator in Detroit. He also, was at USC for quite a bit and kind of sort of built the architecture of how that athletic program runs for their revenue generating teams. So that's a significant hire there. And they previously added Dave Gardy, a longtime NFL executive who's going to help them, with compliance with NFL rules and everything. And then the scouting department, I mean, the changes known so far. I mean, Eric Stokes, his contract was not renewed, the head of personnel. His contract was not renewed. It sounds like David Blackburn will step into that role, slightly different title. Blackburn was with the Ravens for quite some time. Well respected, and below that title, I mean, you're getting into the scouts and head of college pro. So a number of scouts. I think most, if not all, their contracts were up in May. So a lot of them simply weren't renewed. Others left for higher roles elsewhere, like David Whittington and I believe Harrison Richter to the Falcons, reunited with Kyle Smith over there. But yeah, Connor Behringer's, the latest name that is, we've confirmed has not been renewed. Chris Polian is going to Cleveland. So it's starting to trickle out, but yeah, you're starting to hear some names. And one name that's coming in is Jack Quagliarello. I hope I'm saying that right. A young former scouting assistant from the 49ers is going to be a scout here in Washington. So
a couple of the names that I'm most interested in are Rob Rogers. Do we know if
Yeah. Yeah.
Do we
I'm still
have an
waiting on
answer
clarity
there?
on that one because, yeah, there are some crossover, obviously, with Sosna, who was, his primary focus in Detroit was salary capping, contract
Right.
negotiations, which is everything that Rob has done. Still waiting on clarity on Rob. I don't know if you've heard differently.
No, I
Is
haven't
this
asked either, though. Go ahead.
Josh doing what he said about, everybody has to spend the same money and all, and we can win in other positions? This is one of those things where he's trying to get the best of the best?
Yep. Edges. That's the thing.
Win on the
Finding edges.
That's it. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and you got to let Peters build out his staff that he wants, right?
Right,
Like
exactly.
you've empowered him to a level that you have to. Basically, the way I understand it is Marty Herney is still under contract, but not really involved.
Yeah, it's like an advisory role, but he doesn't have a office at the facility or anything. Yeah.
Basically.
But Martin Mayhew got a new deal out of this, new title, new deal. So he's good.
Yeah, I'm curious how it all shakes out. It's definitely interesting how much is happening and probably continues to happen here. And this Sosna guy, I checked him, just some people from LA and then just some people around the league. His reputation is pretty top notch, but a couple of the agents I texted were like, "So who am I dealing with for contracts now?" And I was like, "I don't know."
Yeah,
I think it's going to be
dealing with two people,
right? Maybe
one guy to make sure your money is right, and the other guy who's going to say yay or nay.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I hate to say this, but I think that's been the confusion for years with Washington.
Yeah.
Is who's leading the contract negotiations? Because before it was, Rob Rogers would lead negotiations, but Ron had final say, and there were times when Ron would come in late in the negotiations and kind of, get things going. So it was always a bit of a confusing point for some agents on like what's going on here.
Totally. But I think they are by and large close to done with the overhaul.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when you think about just how different everything is, I mean, they've kind of flipped this thing upside down almost.
Entirely. I mean, like, you think back to exactly a year ago, I mean, the team wasn't sold. It was a different owner, different coaching staff, different front office, mostly different personnel staff. Like I was trying to think how many teams have done the full overhaul in, 12 months. And I want to say like the Panthers were probably the closest after Jerry Richardson was forced to sell, but I mean, they still kept Ron Rivera for a year after that. So,
but normally it's just coaches
and the
players,
quarterback, bringing in a, top two quarterback, so it's really an overhaul.
What about when Denver got sold? Did they flip it all, or did that take a little longer before they brought in Sean Payton?
No, because they had Hackett. They had just hired Hackett. He had the full year or less than a year. And then they changed the coaching staff. But yeah, I mean, it's slightly different, but I'm trying to think how much personnel stuff they kept on LA in sort of an advisory role for a year. But yeah, probably you're right. That's probably the closest match. But this is a full. Tear it down, build it back up. That one felt more piecemeal, I guess. I don't know.
Totally. I agree with you there. Talking with our friend Nicki Jhabvala here from the Washington Post. You can give her a follow at Nicki Jhabvala, Jhabvala. So now that they have overhauled it, flipped it upside down, we've seen them a little bit. We'll be back out there tomorrow. What do you think they got? Schedules out? Like, we know the good, the bad. We know where they're going to be. What do you think they got?
I mean, I think right now it's just potential, but they got a lot of it. I'm still curious to see how these pieces come together. What the offense will really start to look like as they get further into their installs, and later on in preseason once rosters start to trim a bit. Which nowadays I guess they only do one cut, right? So that'll be later. But I think there are still more questions than answers with this team. Just because of the newness of it all. I think Jaden Daniels has looked really good in these couple practices that we've seen, but they're really light practices. I mean, you're throwing against air for most of them. So I'm looking for more of the intangible stuff during these. Like, how is he with teammates? What's sort of like the practice tempo, and how are they structuring things, and what's their goal out of these practices? So I feel more optimistic going into the season, but that could also be just because everything's new. It's more of a mystery than it was in years past.
It's more exciting.
Yes, yeah. New things always get people excited, Yeah. But will it lead to consistent wins? We'll see. It may not in the first year. It may. It also may. But yeah, I'm still at the point though where I still have more questions. I want to see a bit more before I really have.
Does the expectations change in this situation, knowing that it's a completely new overhaul team, not just the players and coaches, but front office and all, where you have to give it time to take before judging like we always did in the past?
Yeah, I think you do. Yeah, I don't think, I don't think it's reasonable to expect them to just suddenly become a winner overnight. I know teams have done it, Houston being the most recent. But, it takes a while to gel, and there's still some missing pieces, left tackle being the most glaring at this point. So I think it could take a while, and I think it's reasonable to expect that. I know that's never a reality for fans or anybody else to just be like, oh, it's okay if we just, kind of toss this season and move on to the next. Never works like that.
Yeah.
So I think there will always be that urgency to win now. So, and I think that's a good thing. At times in recent years, I felt like there was just, I don't know. I felt like sometimes I felt like they were just settling for, mediocre.
Last year, 100%.
I don't know. When it was year 4, you say you're supposed to be competing.
Right.
I don't mind that they raise the bar a bit, even if they don't reach it. I think just raising it is a good sign.
Yeah. We've never done this. Nicki, we have a question for you from the chat on the stream.
Okay.
Yeah, Brave New World. It's from our guy DNC. We have a big listener, Darren, that lives in North Carolina, and he wants to know, and I sadly don't know this. What part of North Carolina are you from, Nicki?
I am from Cary.
Okay, so
right
Raleigh.
outside Raleigh.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And this,
I think that's where Leon is from.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
There you go. You know Leon Duncan, Nicki?
I do not.
Okay.
No.
I thought maybe you overlapped when he was over there.
No.
There we go. Now we're getting stream questions.
This is
when you get stream questions, they can now promote it. And when you can promote it, we can get paid more. That's the way I look at it, Nicki.
There you
go. It's smart.
Anything specific when we're out there tomorrow you're going to be looking for?
I mean, it's still for me, it's Jaden Daniels, but like I'm also, I want to see, how the defense is coming together too. Like I'm looking at those corners pretty closely just because that was such a weak spot for them last year, and they've made some changes. But also that linebacking core, I really like just watching Bobby Wagner work, just seeing how he is with other players, how he works with Frankie Louvo. I think that could be a really interesting spot for them, again, because they've been generally weak here in years past, and they could be quite good this year. So I like kind of seeing that come into shape. So that's what I'll be looking for.
Well, dude, it's almost like Daniels has like a magnetic quality. You know what I mean? Like you can't stop watching him. And especially at this stage, like what is important to watch when we get to training camp is how the lines look, right? Like, but at this point, there's zero value in watching the lines. They're not doing
They're mixing
anything.
everybody up just to get them right.
told you
that.
Yeah. He said this is for the skill position players.
Totally.
Offensive lineman, that's when you put on pads.
Right. Hey, did you have anything on the 18-game schedule? Maybe Maskey had that. I don't know if you worked with him on that, but just where that, like, for them to actually pull that off CBA wise, how they can do it.
Yeah, I think they would need to get the agreement from the PA, but I think, this CBA is structured as such that Goodell has a lot of power, as we all know. So I think they could find a way to slip it through, but it's not currently allowed in this current CBA. So they would have to make some concession that would be agreed upon. What would the league have to give up to get that 18
The man
game?
running the PA right now, if it happens, there's going to be some concession, and it's going to have some money coming towards the PA.
Yes.
Because he's a money guy.
Is there, like, remember the players wanted the weed policy to change, and the league use that as leverage, and then they finally did it. Is there a singular issue out there besides money that players care about right now?
Money.
But the weed was a big thing.
I think before the people that were running it, they went with that. I don't think this dude is going. I don't think Lloyd's going with that. He knows how much money the NFL makes.
Right.
And I think they're going to have to, if you want to do this, because you're trying to line your pockets, we're going to line these players' pockets.
I think the problem with the PA in the league is that the league will always, and always has, had so much more power than PA. It's not the same as the NBA with its union. To me, that's more of a competitive balance there. Sadly, I think, ownership in league have so much leverage over the players. You wish it wasn't like that, but I would think it'd be great if they could argue and get more money, but there's always been ways for the league to be like, nah, we're not changing that split of revenue.
I think when Gene was there, a lot of things was changing, and then you get new people and they come in with a different mindset.
Yep,
I think you just got to hold your water when you're dealing with them, because what they look for little cracks. Yeah. And a lot of players begin to speak, but the best thing to do is get all of those damn quarterbacks on your side. That's how you beat the league.
Well, and that's been the biggest issue, is like there's such a pay disparity. You got the quarterbacks who don't really care about some of the issues that really affect the rank and file. So are they going to speak up about? Probably not, So that's a lot of the issue with it, is there's just such a pay gap, and the existence in the league of most of players is in such contrast to the most powerful players. And figuring out ways to get their voice involved is paramount to them getting what they want in this. But how do you essentially make them care more? I agree with you, JP, that the weed thing was like kind of a sticking point, and the league could always come back and say, well, it wasn't federally legal, and it still isn't, only for certain types of cannabis. So they would always just say, no, we still got to test for it, but we'll raise the THC limit. But, I still think it's possible that is one that they just say, no, we're just not going to test for it, sort of like the NHL.
They kind of don't.
Is that
now.
enough?
Like the weed thing has kind of gone away. And honestly, even when the league had their relatively draconian weed policy, those dudes had a pretty good idea when they were going to get to.
I mean, they know the dates when they start testing.
Right.
It's and when they stop, like, you got to work hard to get caught. Especially with the THC limits anymore, you have to work hard to get caught. And if you do, you probably deserve it because you're dumb enough to do it.
Right. Totally.
But
Nicki,
I do. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was just wondering if there's something related to like the sports wagering, because that's such a wild west right now still, and it means a lot to the league, and the players know how much it means to the league. So there's some sort of concession that they could draw from that, like try to get even less stringent policies around that. We'll see.
If I were the players, that's something they couldn't throw at me, because guess what? Only a few players have done something ignorant enough to gamble on it. I would not go with a whole league deal because of a few fools.
What would you like? So, I mean, you were a player rep to go to 18 games. What would you demand?
I would demand more money.
Just like another percentage?
More money and more of a percentage and things of that nature. Yeah. And I would take some of the power out of his hands, because the ultimate thing is, and this is the problem, when I was a rep, you had veteran players that were some type of person that were reps. Yeah. Today they get most punters, and let's be real, Tress is great here. Most guys on the other team, nobody care about what they're saying. And then they get young players.
Who's the rep now?
I believe it's Tress was last year, I believe.
I thought it was Nick Gates, oddly. We have to break. Landfill's going to flip out. I will see you tomorrow. Thank you for making time for us.
Of course. Thanks, guys.